This is a documentary on the Legacy of Hope assembly that I do, how it impacts people, particularly teens, but more importantly, it's about you guys. I want the world to understand that it's not easy being a teen. It's not easy in the world, and sometimes it's not easy in family situations and circumstances. And did Legacy of Hope help you in any way in looking at the circumstances of your world? Does that make sense? Okay. So, first of all, what do you remember from the assembly?
It was the after story about the high school sweetheart couple.
And what about that stuff in your mind?
It reminded me a lot about one of my past relationships where I've been in a similar one. He had trouble with drugs and alcohol. He eventually started doing it.
Okay, so when you were seeing that, did it make you have feelings?
It made me feel like neglected, angry with him. I just felt that this wasn't right for me. I knew it wasn't who I used to be when I was younger.
I relate to that very well. Yeah. Finding ourselves in circumstances we didn't think we were ever going to be in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, that's good. Anybody else remember anything? What made you want to come and join us today?
Like, I liked it a lot, and I was able to relate to it with some of the situations, and it opened up my eyes, and I just saw things more clearly. And like, I was having problems too back then, and it made me feel better about myself a little bit.
Maybe I can refresh your memory. And do you want to share anything, by the way? Isaac.
I was just gonna say also, like, when you had told me when I had found out it was your story, I was more inspired than anything, because I was just like, oh my god, like, if she's able, like, because I know I go through a lot of hardships, and like, if you're able to stand up there with a smile on your face, like, it just was like, okay, like, I know that you're gonna go through a lot, but if you're here standing smiling, like, it was just like, okay, like, if you smile through it all, then like, you come out better.
Oh, God, I appreciate that. I will let you know that in coming through, like you say, hardships in life, I still, this last year was a hard year for me in many, many different arenas, and I feel the feelings, I feel the difficulty. Yeah, thanks for coming. And going through difficulties in life, and I've been through many, other difficulties since then. Nothing like living with an alcoholic addict, which was like absolutely devastating to me because I'd never been through anything so gut-wrenching and so emotionally abusive, and so scary and so upsetting as that. I think having gone through something really emotionally traumatic for me, well, I got to learn that alcoholism and drug addiction, that I'm actually powerless over those things, that I don't cause it, can't cure it, and can't control it. We call it 3 C's. I somehow used to think that it was my job, and we ladies get this, it's our job to make the man in our life happy. Have you ever, we get that from the Cinderella story, we get that from everything around us. And you guys, I'm curious, I've never asked guys this, do you expect girls in your life to make you happy?
Yeah.
Well, forget it, we're not going to do it. Well, that's kind of like all the love stories that you hear and watch when you're teenagers. You buy it, you learn that. But the reality is I've gone through hardships and kind of had to live through them, is that we really are responsible for our own happiness, both guys and girls. That eventually we have to find out how to love ourselves. And then when you come together with another person, and each person has some self-respect and self-worth, then it builds together. But with my first husband, I was 15, I had all kinds of stuff, and I didn't know much then about how to deal with life and trauma and difficulties. And I wanted him to make me happy, and I thought if I made him happy, in turn I could count on him making me happy. But you throw drugs and alcohol in there, that messes up a person's mind. He wasn't able to make me happy. But I didn't know it was drugs and alcohol. I thought he just didn't love me anymore. That tore me up. So given all that, and what you shared, Isaac, that I liked, so made you think you can get through these things. Yes, you can. As telling myself, I'm going to make today good, I'm going to make today good, I'm going to put a smile on my face. There's also a compliment, which is I'm going to identify those painful feelings and I'm going to talk about them in places where people understand and appreciate and can help me understand that it's not my fault when other people are mean or vicious or cold or bullying or don't treat me right. Because that was the hard part for me, is I thought it was my fault. And I didn't know anything about alcoholism and drug addiction at the time. Did you with your boyfriend?
No, I didn't. It actually came to me as a surprise that he even did that. He had a really nice paying job working, repairing phones, and then suddenly one day I walk into his house and there's just a ton of smoke everywhere. I'm like, what are you doing? And then I see empty Jack Daniel bottles on the floor, and I met a girl who was supposed to be his sister apparently in the bathroom. I'm like, what is this?
Gosh.
Yeah.
And then were the angry words that came up? Yeah, please feel free. Thank you. Did you guys have confrontation, arguments?
Yes, definitely. He almost hit me once, but I told him, I was like, you're not going to touch me. I'm not going to let you come near me like that. I don't want you around me if you're going to do that to me. You don't need to be in my life. And he tried to clean up, I think. He stopped doing it in front of me, which tried to show me, oh, I'm going to stop. But really it just got worse and worse. I was like, you know what, it's over.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, one of the things that I've learned about the disease of alcoholism and addiction, it's called a progressive disease. And I don't know if you guys remember in the assembly, I kept using the word, it's a disease. How many of you grew up thinking that somebody you know who has a drink or drug problem was just a bad person? They can treat you badly. And so we tend to think that they're a bad person. Their behaviors are bad, but that's because alcoholism and drug addiction does change their brain, the way they think, and they don't think clearly. A person who has an alcohol problem, or is a legitimate alcoholic, or has a drug addiction problem, they will never think normally. They will never think like somebody, or I shouldn't say never, well, they're using. They will never think like those of us who aren't using. It totally kind of hijacks the brain. I'm curious, how long did you stay in that relationship with him after that first incident when you came to his house and there was all that smoke?
Honestly, I stayed with him for another 2 months maximum. I can't really remember fully.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to put up with it. I was all like, I started staying away from him, hung out with him less and less each day. And then it came to seeing him once a week. And then even that started slowing down to where it was once a month. And I was like, I can't be with you anymore. All I smell is smoke, alcohol. You always have perfume on you, which isn't mine at all because it smells, honestly, in my opinion, it doesn't smell like decent for a woman to wear, and I don't want it anywhere near me, and I don't want you near me anymore.
So it made you have a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
What feelings do you think? I can hear them. What do you think they are?
It kind of hurt me because he was my first relationship, which was hard for me. I was 13 at the time, and he was also 17. So it hurt me really bad. I stayed with him completely. The whole relationship was 5 months, so I was
Very
like,
formative because you were young.
yeah, and so it hurt. I had already been through a lot of separation problems with people before. Like when I left my father, there was a lot of separation problems, so it was already hard leaving him. And
Gosh, yes.
yeah, so I was honestly angry and sad, and didn't know how to handle it at the time, and ended up having to take therapy and counseling.
Good for you. You did the right things. Did you find that, I can't say how it couldn't, but did you find that it started to affect how you did at school?
A little bit, yeah. I started ditching school in my 7th and 8th grade year. I didn't care to be at school anymore. I kept getting out of my classes, which were easiest for me and easiest to miss. I would just go to the high school lunch, or I'd have them come pick me up, and I'd sneak out of the gate. Honestly, when I think back, I wish I could change it all.
I'll bet you never thought that was who you were.
I didn't know who I was after the second month of me finding out that he was with me. I was like, who am I? What happened to me? I never used to want to be around this. My father did it, and I despised him. Why would I want to put myself in this position to where I'm dealing with it again?
Now, one of the things that I tried to kind of reveal with Legacy of Hope is just how much our emotions influence our choices, and because it influences who we think we are, how we feel about ourselves, right? And so, it sounds like you grew up with a dad who had a drink or drug problem?
Yeah, he had both. It was difficult. I ended up getting bronchitis from secondhand smoking because of him. I was like 7 or 8 years old, and he beat my family for a long time.
Did he beat you?
Yes, not as much as he would my mother or my brother, but it was still pretty bad.
Oh, that's, and again, one of the things that I do this, the reason I do this is to help young people at your age understand that his drinking, did he use any drugs?
He used marijuana.
So his reliance on drugs and alcohol to cope with feelings. Didn't work. He still came out with anger and physical abuse. And I don't know, I don't, in my case, my husband stopped bringing home appropriate amounts of money, so it affected us financially. It affects every area of life. And as a child, you didn't go, oh, my dad has a drinking or drug problem, it's not my fault. Instead, what did you do?
I honestly thought it was my fault. Anytime he ever, I'm sorry, Dad, it's all my fault. I deserve what you're giving me. I'm sorry, I'll try to be a good girl.
It's heartbreaking when you hear that, because I know that's what children in alcoholic, drug addicted homes feel like. When we were talking to Isaac about getting over it, it takes bringing this out into the open and saying that's how I felt, because that little girl who believed that as a little girl is still in you. We all carry the little kid in us. We know that for the rest of our lives, and that little kid still may need you at this stage to go, it wasn't your fault. Because when you think back about it, do you still feel anger and sadness?
A little bit. I do feel anger, not so much sadness anymore, but I do feel angry. I occasionally talk to my father. He's actually coming down next weekend to help me buy stuff for my prom.
Cool.
And I do have a little anger towards him still. He does occasionally drink a Bud Light or something, and I tell him, if you don't do it around me, I don't care, and if you're not drinking a whole 32-pack in one day like you used to, I don't care.
He's made a lot of progress.
Yes, he has, and it's been a really good change for him. He's seen how I am now, and it's really encouraged him to progress more in his life.
So, yeah, and actually you're very lucky, because oftentimes the disease of alcoholism, well, or at least the drinking problem, doesn't get better, it gets worse. So I'm glad to hear you have that. But that angry little girl, the anger over what happened to this little girl, it will take time. I'm glad you've done some therapy. That's probably why you've made so much progress.
Yeah.
Because when we have hurtful feelings in us, when somebody's, has hurt our feelings deeply when we were little children, that little kid has to be, he or she has to say, I'm mad as hell and it hurts, and I hate the way you treated me. You don't necessarily even have to say it to them. One of the things I've learned is that you can, I don't know if you did this in therapy, sometimes I've learned to write a letter. I wrote so many letters to my high school boyfriend, who became my husband, after he was dead, because I had to tell him, I had to get the anger out, I had to get the sadness out, I had to get the disappointment out, I had to say, I never thought my life would go this way, and eventually, I did some therapies as well, and different things. Now I can talk about it, and I know that little girl. Now I've also said, little girl, I'm going to take care of you now. I'm not letting you approach you like that anymore. Or little boy, I'm going to take care of you. What a lot of people do is, instead of saying, I'm going to take care of you, is they shove those feelings down. I'm never going to think about that again. I'm just going to be so angry. I'm just going to stay pissed off, and I'm never going to deal with it again. Then makes us look at the world differently, right? How many of you does this make sense? Okay. How about anybody else can you share circumstances in your own life that have been difficult?
Well, recently my mom got pretty tired. I don't even want to go talk to anybody because my little sister came crying to me, and I felt like I had to be the stronger person because I'm an older brother. So I went to even talk to my school counselor, and I don't like talking about it because I just don't like to. I don't like to perceive myself as a weak person. So I'd rather not like you said before, where you just push the feelings down. I'd rather do that because it's easier, and I feel like I can't show I have to be strong. I don't have a choice. In life, the weak fall back, and the strong need to stay strong. So I feel like I don't even. My counselor told me to go talk to a therapist, but I don't want to because I feel like I need to just I don't have time to be weak. In the life, you can't be weak. You have to move on, and you have to stay strong.
Okay, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you just shared, because I agree with you that sometimes it isn't the right time always to deal with those feelings. In sharing the feelings when they start coming up, we feel weak because they drain us. They're so draining. They're so anger and pain and sadness and just all the feelings. I can't even imagine what it feels like to have your mom go this. It hurts, doesn't it? Yeah. And so I appreciate that you have the courage to be here today. I know it's making you feel. right? I know. It doesn't mean you're weak. You may feel weak because all the feelings are so hard to control. Strength, when it comes to having painful situations happen in life, like your mom's situation, you are not weak for having the feelings. You're human. Do you remember when I talked about that amygdala and that cortex, how the brain works in Legacy of Hope? I did that because I wanted to help you know that having feelings is on purpose. But I believe this power in the universe that gave us feelings because it helps us to be loving and compassionate, and they guide us. The feelings you're having, you are not weak, but you do have responsibilities, it sounds like, to take care of your little sister. Now, your little sister has had feelings too. Do you want her to push those feelings down and keep anger shoved inside?
I mean, I told her to come talk to me at any time because I don't want her falling deeper into like the sadness. But it's just like, for her it's harder because like, for me, my dad, he was a drug user, but he moved on, but he moved on without me. Like, he moved on and got a family and he just moved
He
on
left you
without me.
guys.
And then like, my little sister, she's from the same mom but a different dad, and her dad died.
Oh.
So like, for her, I know like, for me, my dad may not be there, but he's still alive. Like, if I wanted to, I can call him and like, I have another parent. But for her, like, I just can't imagine how it feels to have like, that's her second parent gone. Like, she doesn't have
Oh.
anybody now.
Who are you guys living with?
I live with my grandmother, my dad's mom, and she lives with my mom's mom.
So you and your little sister don't even live together. You are so brave to share this. I so appreciate, and I'm here to tell you, you're not alone. I have certainly known a lot of kids, teenagers. I call them, you're mature. I respect who you are, but I've known a lot of young people having circumstances like that. I do Legacy of Hope also, so we can bring it back to this conversation and say, do you see that drugs and alcohol have caused a lot of these problems? And even if you don't, I'm here to at least encourage you to see that. Do you ever have the feeling like you should have been able to take care of, fix things? Do you? Then this is a really valuable conversation. I'm here to tell you, I've spent 30 years of my life learning about the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction and what it does to the kids. And I'm here to tell you, it gives us the feeling like somehow we are supposed to be able to fix these problems for the ones we love. And you can't. If you've heard about, Alcoholics Anonymous or Al-Anon, which is for the family and friends of alcoholics, they have they call their 12 steps. And the first step is, I am powerless over alcohol and my life has become unmanageable. What that means is I am powerless over somebody else's drinking or drug use. I'm powerless over how it makes them behave. I'm powerless over the bad choices they make. They make bad choices. But that's what addiction does. It takes over the brain. It's bigger than intelligence. It's bigger than love. It's bigger than any other thing in a human being, in their heart or their mind. It takes over, and you have people who don't act like reasonable people. But as a kid, what do you know? They're your parents. You think they know what they're doing, don't you? And if they aren't doing it right, and have you ever had one of those adults in your life tell you that it's your fault?
But I would just think that like, when my dad was using, I always said that are we not important enough for you not to be to stop using for us? Like, is it not worth it? Like, you had us, so why not stop for us?
I so appreciate. That's how I felt with my husband. I do everything I can to make you happy. I dress nice, I cook nice meals, I take out an extra job so you don't have to work so hard. I wanted to fix it, and he didn't act like aren't I important enough? I know that feeling. But what I have now learned is, if we separate who they are from being the alcoholic and the addict, and we know that the alcoholic addict part of them takes over, they can't make the choice. I kind of like to explain it like, love is a bright burning candle. And when you put it in a dark room, it does not light up the room, makes you feel good. But addiction and alcoholism is like the sun. Imagine putting a candle in front of the sun. What would happen? Well, first of all, you wouldn't see it. The sun is so bright, it takes over everything. Second of all, what does it do? It would melt. That's what happens to love around addiction. So now at this stage, you have more of a developed brain. So how old are you now?
I'm 18.
8? Oh, good. You can say, I get it. It wasn't that he didn't love me, it's that he couldn't. that the addiction and the alcoholism made him impossible. But I am powerless over whether he ever gets better, gets nicer, chooses to stop, even communicate with me. It is not something, I am powerless over that disease in him. I hate the disease of alcoholism and drug addiction with all my might. It hurts us, doesn't it? I hate what it does in families, in relationships. I hate it, but I don't hate the person. But I also know I don't have to choose to be around it. If they're still into the drinking or the drug use, I no longer choose to be around anybody who drinks heavily or uses drugs, because I can't rely on them being able to make loving choices towards me or anybody else. Now, if the more you learn about alcoholism and drug addiction,